Hello, this is Gary Simon with GarySimon.net and DesignCourse.com, and today we're going to design this iOS app icon. So our work primarily will begin in Adobe Illustrator CS6, and we're going to start by going to File, New, change Units to Pixels, change Width and Height to 512. We'll hit OK. And also to note, I'm going to be talking quick because I want to get this done within around 15 minutes. Or 15 to 20 minutes. So I'll be talking fast, but you can always just pause, stop, rewind, and follow along. So one of the things we're going to start with here is the rounded rectangle tool. And one thing we need to do is go to View, Snap to Grid, View, Show Grid. And then what we can do is at the very upper left-hand corner, double click, and we'll get this rounded rectangle dialog box, and we can set the exact dimensions of this rounded rectangle and make sure corner radius is 80. We'll hit OK, and then what we can do is remove this stroke to 0, and we're going to give the foreground color a gradient, radial. Now hit the G key, and right around here we'll double click, and that'll give us like a spotlight effect basically. Now I don't want it to be that bright, so we'll double click here and change it to right around that lightness. Okay, and now what we'll do is create an ellipse, and right around here in the center we'll hold Shift and Alt and drag out to right around there. Hold the G key and we'll redo the gradient, holding Shift. Alright, and then we'll give it a stroke of 6. We'll click Stroke and align the stroke inside. We'll click over here to select the stroke and give it a linear gradient. And we will change the radius to 120. Now we'll just adjust the colors here to give it the effect of chrome, and yours doesn't have to match what I'm doing, so you can experiment with whatever you want. Alright, and maybe one more over here. Make that a little bit darker. Alright, and we're going to duplicate this, so Control C, Control F. Holding Shift and Alt down, we will drag in just a little bit and change the stroke this time to something larger. Well, we'll try 12. And we'll adjust the gradient just a little bit more. And again, you don't have to be perfect. Alright. Now what we're going to do is take this inner one, Control C, Control F, Shift and Alt, and drag in. Change the stroke to 2. Hit Enter. We'll remove the foreground color. And we'll also adjust the gradient here, just to 2 color pickers. And something a little bit darker to just barely noticeable. Okay, and Control C, Control F again to duplicate and drag in to right around there. And this is just barely visible. Alright, now what we're going to do is take this inner one again, Control C, Control F. We'll enlarge it, and we'll remove the stroke and give the foreground color a radial gradient. And the G key is selected, so we'll take this one right here and make it white. Double click this one. We'll leave it there, and we'll change it to 0 opacity. oops, and we'll change the opacity right here to around 70. Okay. Now what we can do is select the first ellipse we created, and duplicate that, drag it in, use the up and right arrows just to get it selectable, and position it right around there, and change the stroke to, we'll try 3, and then we're going to change the gradient to a red, so select RGB, double click this one, make it slightly darker. Alright, and let's go ahead and create some reflections with the pen tool. First, let's select the glare that we created, or the glow, and then we'll select the pen tool and create some reflections. And if you don't know how to use the pen tool, there are plenty of tutorials that will show you exactly how to use it. And if you don't know the pen tool, you definitely need to know it. I'll change the opacity here to 30% is kind of good. We'll duplicate that and just resize it slightly. And we'll keep it right around there. And then we're going to create a real quick sparkle, if you will. Now I'm hitting Control Z to undo. Now, because I'm going quick, I'm not going to make this perfect. Obviously, it isn't. But just for the sake of moving along, we'll accept imperfections. Okay, and then we're going to take this right here, the inner glow, duplicate that, scale it in, put it right around here, maybe make it a little bit brighter. Okay, one last thing, we'll take one of these reflections, duplicate it, scale it down a lot, and drag it over here. And make it stand out a little bit more. That's fine. Yeah, we'll leave the blend mode normal. Let's go to gradient, and yeah, that's why we want to change this one from black to white. And then adjust the right back down around 40. Okay. All right, so now what we can do is we'll save this, and we're going to export it also as a PSD. I'm just going to overwrite this one I created earlier. And when we export it as a PSD, we'll import it into Photoshop. I'll just name mine App Icon 2. And make sure Right Layers is selected and screen is at 72. We'll hit OK. And then in Photoshop, I will go to File Open and open that file we just created. And I'm going to adjust the canvas size here to, let's see here, 850 by 600. I'm going to select the Paint Bucket tool. First, expand this layer group, create a new layer, Control-Shift-N, enter, and put it at the very bottom, and color it white. And then create, or take the elliptical marquee tool, and right around the center, we'll hold Shift and Alt and drag out. And we'll create a new layer. Control-Shift-N, hit Enter. And we'll drag it up top here. And we'll color it a bright blue. And then we will hold the Alt key and hit the Delete key. Then what we can do is go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Right around there, and hit OK. And then we can experiment with the blend mode. So select up here twice, and then you can hit your down arrow key to start experimenting with different colors. So I'm going through each one to see if there's one that I like. And I did see one initially, which would be this one right around here. And I'm going to select the brush tool and make a pretty big brush. Control-Shift-N for a new layer. And select once, and then yeah, I think I like the linear burn on that one. And then I'm going to take this free leather texture, which is linked in the description of this video, and I'm going to right click it, copy image, and then selecting this down here, the very first layer we created in Illustrator, Control-Shift-N and make it a clipping mask, and then Control-V to paste, Control-T to resize, and then hold Shift and Alt down to scale it down proportionally. Select the Move tool, hit OK, Apply, and then we'll change the blend mode of this as well. And I'm just going to experiment to find one that I kind of like. This one isn't too bad. Neither is overlay. Again, a lot of this is all just about experimenting with the different blend modes. I think I might use that one, which would be Divide, and with the opacity at 35%. All right, so one more thing. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-N, hit OK, take our brush tool, change the size down a little bit, make the foreground color white. I'm going to make that a little bit larger. And maybe one more smaller one down there, actually a little bit smaller than that. And create a new layer, maybe a bigger one. And as you can see, you can add a lot of different touches, and which will ultimately really affect how this looks very quickly and easily. And basically this layer group contains our icon, so then you can take it, you can flatten it if you want, Control E, and then you can copy it, and you can actually create your icons there. So that is the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. It's pretty simple. As you can see, it's very easy to create a pretty good looking app icon. Now, obviously, you'd want to spend more time than I did, because you can do so much more with this. But that is it. So this is Gary Simon once again from designcourse.com and GarySimon.net. Thanks.